The overwhelming amount of questions that I've been receiving lately about overseeding means I think it's time for an overseeding video. So today I want to talk about how you would actually overseed in the spring if you would like to, and some of the reasons why it's a challenge, but some of the reasons why it might also work. So I seeded this area last fall, but I had a lot of challenges with it. There was some washouts that happened, and it was getting later into the season. It was Kentucky bluegrass. It didn't get super thick because it takes Kentucky bluegrass a while to actually thicken up. So that allowed some weeds to come in, and it allowed some bare spots to still be there coming out of the winter season. So this would be an example where you have some bare spots where maybe I would think about seeding them, or with Kentucky bluegrass, I have the luxury of deciding to let that go and just feed it properly and let it spread on its own. But if you have tall fescue, or you have perennial ryegrass, or a mix of those things, and there's some bare spots like that, it's not going to spread very far into those spots, so you will need to intervene at that point. Now you can decide to wait until fall. If you're okay with that, that's fine, or you can go through this method in the spring. There's a few things though that you need to be concerned about in the spring. The first thing you need to realize is that soil temperatures need to be up or higher in order for seed to germinate. Let's get a temperature reading here. So cool season grass seed should germinate between 50 and 65 degrees. I'm at 50 right there, but the higher end of the spectrum is obviously going to make things move along quicker. And that's why fall is better, because your soil temperatures can be 70, maybe even more than that when at the time of seeding. It just pushes the germination along a little quicker. The second challenge would be these weeds. Now most would think I can just use a regular weed killer from the store, get rid of these, and then put my seed down, but there's a reason why that's probably not going to work. This is what I would consider a traditional, just cheap ortho weed begone that you can get at any store. So most people would love to just go out and spray their weeds. I'm going to show you why that can't be done when you're seeding. So there's one key part in here that you're going to need to pay attention to, and that's going to say bare spots may be reseeded 4 weeks after application. So you'd have to wait 4 weeks after applying this product to be safe to put new seed down. 4 weeks from now is getting already too late to be seeding, or for most people, it's not going to go well because you're getting too close to summer. So there's one product right now that if you really got on it, you can reseed in 2 weeks, and this is that product right here. It's an ester based, so it should be better in cooler weather as well, and it does say you can reseed in 2 weeks. So if you're looking for something, this could be an option, but even so, you really need to get on this right now, because the faster you can get that grass seed down and growing before we get to summertime, the better. Next concern, will the grass seed survive the summer and the heat that's coming? The shallow root system has a hard time with that, so some of it will likely survive, some of it may die off. Keeping your watering up during the summer is very important on new grass seed that's just been planted in the spring. And finally, with this seeding method in the spring, you're not going to be able to use the traditional pre-emergent. So if you go to a store and you see something that says crabgrass preventer, you cannot put that down unless there's one specific kind, which I'll show you right here. It's called Scott's with Weed Preventer. You need to make sure the bag says it has an active ingredient of mesotrione. That one can be used, and I'm going to be using a sprayable version today to spray over top of these weeds that we have, and then put the seed on top. That is okay. Putting down the granular version is only going to prevent new weeds. It doesn't last a long time. It doesn't last months like regular crabgrass preventer would, so you need to be aware of that. So if you've had a crabgrass problem in the past, the spring seeding and the frequent watering and all of that happening during the time frame when crabgrass is actually emerging and coming out, it will love those conditions, and you may struggle with it in the summer. There are some things you can do at that point. I don't want you to come back to me later during the summer and say, you didn't tell me about any of these problems or what could happen. So make sure you understand the risks. And I use the word risk, but honestly, I think that's too strong of a word. With growing grass and everything involved in lawn care, it all takes time, it all takes patience. So if you're willing to just accept some of those things, and you succeed a little bit this spring, and then you go at it again in the fall, and that's your plan for this year, perfect. You haven't failed at anything if you get some weeds that come in, or anything like that. Patience. This isn't going to happen all overnight. Plan for the fall as well. Now, I happen to understand that some of you out there are going to look at those cons of doing the spring seeding, and you don't care about that anyway. You're going to go for it. In the interest of showing you all that, today I'm going to go through the process of overseeding that area that I just showed you out by my street. Go through all of the steps. Here we go. First thing you're going to need, grass seed. This is my grass seed that I planted on my side yard, and it's the same mix that's going over there. So for me, I'd like everything to sort of match. I did plant Kentucky bluegrass in that area last year, but if I add in a small amount of rye right here, it's going to match the rest of my yard. Everything's perfect there. I don't mind. If you're looking for something that's going to come up quick, perennial ryegrass and tall fescue will be faster. I probably would not suggest bluegrass right now because with the cooler soil temperatures and the long germination time, just know that bluegrass is going to take the longest right now, and you may not want to wait that long. It's up to you. Leaving that up to you. I personally want to contain the weeds that are there. I have this product right here called Tenacity. Has that same active ingredient I was talking about in the starter fertilizer. This is mesotrione. But what this will allow me to do with spraying is actually spray the weeds that are there right now. Those should start dying, and then also prevent whatever weeds might want to come up in this growing period. So that's why I'm using a spray. It's more advanced. I understand some of you are just beginners and you don't understand spraying, so I'll quickly talk about that. This is a backpack sprayer I use. It's a Sprayers Plus. Definitely an investment, but if you're going to be doing renovations or you think you're going to be getting quite into this lawn care thing, I recommend looking into investing in something like this. This is battery powered, so you get consistent spray out of it. If you want a cheaper option to go with for beginners, you could get a pump version. This one has a battery in it and it sprays consistently. This is obviously more expensive because of that. If you want to get a cheaper one, you can get one that has a hand pump on it, so you do all the work of pumping. Okay, first thing I'm going to spray on the area is some of this liquid starter fertilizer. The reason I'm showing this today is that it's a good option for smaller areas and smaller lawns. People who don't want to buy like a 50-pound bag of granular starter fertilizer because they won't need it. Something like this, that's what I'm going to use on this section. If you do have a larger area, go to your store or go online and pick up some starter fertilizer. This Lesco product that I've used in the past, sometimes you can find at Home Depot. I've had good luck with that, or there's some other options available online as well. Also, one more thing. The reason this is blue is because I put some of this marker dye in there. And the only reason I did that is just so I can see when it's spraying out. This is a clear liquid product, so when it's mixing with water, it's harder to see. So I just put some blue marker dye in there. And I'm going to let that sit on there just a little bit, dry out before I try to spray any of the weeds, so I don't want to be spraying weeds that are all wet, to make sure my weed killer works as best as possible. Now I like to use a regular spreader to put out my seed. If you have a drop spreader, that'd be perfect, but a lot of people don't. The other option that you can use is one of these hand spreaders, which I definitely have used for seed quite a bit as well. Now usually the bag of seed, or wherever you bought the bag of seed, if you're getting something online like here at Seed Superstore, it will have the information on overseeding rates or seeding rates in general. So definitely you can go ahead and do it very technically if you'd like to. You can measure it out by the pound, and usually it will tell you 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet, 7 pounds per 1,000 square feet. It just depends on the grass type. But Kentucky bluegrass is usually only 2 to 3 pounds for a new yard, and this is a Kentucky blue rye mix. So I'm going to target that around 5-ish pounds per 1,000. And I only have 500 square feet today, so basically what I'm telling you is don't overthink this too much. Set your spreader at a really low setting, pour in some seed, start spreading it, and see what kind of coverage you're going to get. Okay, so now for the fun part, I've put on my spraying shirt, which I will have long sleeves on here, and then got my protective gloves, and I have long pants on as well, and I'll put on some boots here in a second. Those are all precautions you want to use when you're spraying. And so what's nice about this product here, when you get this, So it comes with this little thing so you can measure it out. And this is just the general rate, but this is what I'm going to use. So it'll be half a teaspoon for 1 gallon of water, and I'm going to mix up 1 gallon of solution in my sprayer. So I'm going to fill the rest of this up with water to the 1 gallon mark. And there's 2 more things I'm going to add. I'm going to add some of this marking dye. That way I'll be able to see where I'm spraying. And I'm going to add some surfactant. This will help this stick to the actual weeds that are there. It helps the effectiveness there. Rate is supposed to be 1 to 2 teaspoons. So I've got a little measuring cup here. So actually one of my subscribers last year contacted me and said, I see you doing all these renovations with your peat moss and putting it down by hand. Have you ever thought about getting one of those peat moss spreaders? I said, sure, I've thought about it, but just haven't been able to really find one easily. And he's like, well, I actually made one and I'll send it to you to use in a renovation coming up if you'd like to. Today's the first time I'm trying it, so thank you so much for sending this for me to give it a whirl here. If this thing works out well, it's going to change my renovation game a lot, because spreading peat moss at the end is a messy, dirty process and it's not much fun. So all we should have to do is open this up. It's got these nice little sort of spring-loaded clips. Open that up like that. That is awesome. So what happens here is all that loose stuff gets put down. You still need to break up some of the chunks, because these are able to be used. They're just really dry. So break those up before you put it in, but what it does prevent from putting down is all these twigs, stuff like that, and then it just leaves a perfectly even, nice layer on there. That is amazing. All right, I've pretty much got it loaded up full now. Let's give it another shot. Alright, so that's done. I'm seriously impressed. It was much harder to get the peat moss out of the bag and into the actual peat moss spreader than it was to spread this out. It's very easy to do. I would suggest maybe trying to get that peat moss out of the bag and into something like a wheelbarrow or something where you can grab at it easier and sort of break it up and get the moisture out of it. Then just throw it right in the spreader and it goes very quickly. Look at this. I got nothing on me. No dirt. No dust. First time I've ever spread peat moss and not been filthy afterwards, so that is a win.